you'll hear a lot of auto-tune and digital kind of elements. I don't think any of that is bad necessarily. I just don't find it as healing for myself. So that's not the type of medicine I'm offering, really, you know. I do use a lot of foot pedals and digital effects with my music, but it all has to have sort of this this like unprocessed wholeness to it, you know, that really resonates with people.
All right. Welcome to, whoa, we can edit that out. I was like, what is the name of the podcast? Welcome to Flourish or Fold, Stories of Resilience. We have with us today, Will Evans. Will, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. It's great to have you. So we've talked a bit. I first was introduced to you as a musical artist. I don't know how many years ago this would have been. I want to say 2015, 2016. So I guess it would be 5 or 6 years ago now, when my family and I were living in New England in the Hartford, Connecticut area. And we participated in Hike to the Mic, where you hike, I don't know, like about a mile, you know, seemingly straight up. And then there's musicians playing at sort of the top of the mountain. And I was just so captivated by your sound and your lyrics, and I was so moved by the authenticity of your voice. I thought, I gotta go home and download a whole mess of your music. And so I did. And I've been a follower of yours and an appreciator of your music and your voice ever since then. And then last year I don't know when it was, there was a concert that you did on Instagram, and you were playing downstairs, and I think you just maybe had a child that was born. And I was really struck by your wife came downstairs and brought you muffins while you were playing. She'd been baking upstairs and like caring for your child. And then she like brought you this plate of muffins. And I was like, I love this.
That doesn't sound like her. I must have been a rare night that you caught the show.
You're gonna get off and say, honey, why do you never make me muffins anymore?
What happened? Man, I don't recall that particular live stream, but yes, we did. We live streamed every Thursday for about a year, just as a means of staying connected with our fans and our community. And it became kind of, in a sort of tongue-in-cheek way, it was like our big night in every week. That was like our date night. You know, we'd try to get our then 1-year-old to bed by 7:30 or whatever, and then we would you know, split a glass of wine and jump on live stream to check in with the community. And it would often sort of snowball into these funny discourses between my wife and myself. And then, you know, I would play some music as well. But I think it was very relatable for people, and it was hopefully comforting during, you know, the dark months in the beginning of the pandemic, and then again last winter. It seemed to, you know, really connect for some people, and I think that's really a testament to what I try to do as a musician, is to break down barriers and really kind of welcome people in, and sort of just kind of push this message of kindness, humanity, and compassion. And yeah, I don't remember getting muffins delivered too often. We often would fall into these silly, typical husband and wife discourses that I think became very paramount to our weekly live stream. And people really like when my wife wasn't there in the beginning, the comments would start lighting up like, "Where's Emily? Like we're here for the show, not just for you." So yeah, I'm glad you tuned in that
Yeah. And
that
that's when you were
time.
like, Emily, the fans want you.
That's right.
And that's when she's like, why are all these people at my date night?
Yeah. No, she's quite the ham. So she started to really, enjoy the little bit of fame that it was bringing to her.
Fantastic. Well, she sounds like an amazing what do you call that? Oh, in I was thinking of like a magician, more than a sidekick. She sounds like a lovely assistant.
Oh yes, yeah. I mean, she's the show. Let's be honest. I'm just there to, to
For
play in the background.
musical accompaniment.
That's right. Yeah, I'm the pit orchestra.
So I'm gonna dive right in with you because as I mentioned, your music truly speaks to my soul and to, I believe, likely so many other people's souls in terms of what you're creating and the lyrics and the honesty that you bring into the world with some of the content and concepts that you've chosen to bring about lyrically, musically. And because this is a show about well-known people sharing really their lesser well-known stories of resilience, what I'd love to know from you, Will, is when you sort of think about the trajectory and the arc of your life, what challenge would you say that you've experienced in the past has most significantly formed, the person or the man that you are today?
Um, I think that as somebody who is very creative and I think the sort of expectations of oneself um, can be hard to overcome often
Mm-hmm.
in an industry where you're often underappreciated. Um, I think it's the crossroads I've come to several times in my career, and continued to just push through, I think is that self-doubt,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll have a really great performance, or you'll write a song that you're just really thrilled about, and then the next day you're very unsure if that was really what you wanted to put out into the world, and it's too late at that point, sometimes. um or you'll assess yourself um every so often, and it becomes, I don't know, it becomes sort of this baggage, right? This weight that you're carrying. Like every time you think you've gotten to another step, you realize there's infinitely more steps that you um need to climb, and I think that's very relatable for a lot of careers, right? But
Truly.
music is one of those careers where you know guys who were playing restaurants and bar gigs uh 30, 40 years ago were still making the same amount of money that guys are making today. Guys and gals, it's musicians are undervalued and underappreciated because it's the first thing to kind of be cut from a budget, if things get tough or whatever. And the pandemic's been no exception to that. I had started 2020 with I think 4 sold out shows, and I had quite a large tour and was kind of building this momentum, and March 1st hit and I canceled, I think, 100 shows in the following week. So, you know, I think had I not had so many years of sort of building up this tolerance and resistance to defeat, I think I very easily could have crumbled in that moment.
Yeah.
But I think if there's one thing I could say that I'm proud of, it's that I've learned to really have grit and perseverance through those doldrums, those, you know, those moments of um, indecision, self-doubt, reflection. You know, I've been able to sort of sit with those thoughts and not take them personally, but just just be a witness to them, you know, in essence,
I
and
love that.
try to learn from those times. You know, often those are when the best songs have been written, is kind of really, you know, digging into that fertile emotion, or you know, and you know, coming back with these fruits of wisdom and knowledge that those moments provide. So yeah, I think does that answer your question sort of, or is that, you know, am I going on a tangent already?
I this show's all about tangents.
Okay, good.
The tangents are probably the most interesting part. I mean, so many questions were coming to mind for you to ask you as you were talking, and you know, I'll share a comment that came to mind for me, and then I'll ask you a question. The comment that came to mind for me is, you know, you said musicians had been undervalued and underappreciated for some time. And, you know, in my work on resilience, one of the things that I've had the great honor to do is to actually coach and work with a variety of very well-established and also emerging artists who are musicians, who are looking to either grow their career or be sustainable in their career. And I've always loved music. I've always been captivated by music. And in part, I think one of the reasons why I'm captivated by music is that I'm dyslexic. And, you know, there's all different kind of elements of dyslexia, right? Different types of diagnoses. But for and I guess I'll say for people who are diagnosed with dyslexia, some people, not everyone, when you're dyslexic and you silently read to yourself, some people who are dyslexic don't have that like reading voice in their head. I do have the reading voice in my head, but I can't hear music in my head. So if you were to ask me, like, how does this song go right now? I'd be like, you know, so not only can I not replay music in my head that I've heard, I also can't create new music in my head. And so when you talk about musicians being undervalued and underappreciated, you know, I agree with you. You know, the music industry is an industry that is incredible for some people, and it's a violent crusher of dreams for a lot of other people. And also for me, knowing that any music that I hear, the genesis of that music has to come from outside of myself, I think is in part why I've been so enthralled in working with musical artists, because this is something that without you and other people that create music, I would not be able to do, you know, in my own head.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I want to sort of evaluate that. I don't mean underappreciated, because people do appreciate music and musicians. I think in a maybe in a monetary sense, you know, in many careers, you you work a certain number of years and then there's a natural progression. You could be a one-hit wonder, right? And you come out the gate swinging, and then you're at the top of the game, and then everyone forgets about you, or whatever, or lightning only struck once, and you never had another hit, and you're back to playing your local watering holes. And I think that particularly for like young artists who are very successful early on, like you see that the fall from grace is not a pretty thing often. And it's difficult, I think, to manage those emotions of like the adoration to the nobody cares about you. And I think if like I said, I'm just grateful that I've sort of had many years of practicing humility. And that's like one of my hashtags is humble hustle. I am not afraid to just keep working on my craft, and to humbly present what it is that I feel like I've really worked at for a long time, but to never get in the mindset or to get into that toxic kind of that toxic mentality of feeling like underappreciated, feeling like people are just that you're not valued at all, like you can't do this career if you let your ego take control, because it will torture you or torment you. So yeah, really controlling that emotion, or channeling it rather, into something productive. For me, it's always back into the music, into the process. Yeah, cultivating that just new material or emotion that people really can relate to. I think the more raw we are, the more potent our creativity becomes.
Yeah. You talked about how you've built up kind of this tolerance or resistance to defeat, and I loved how you said that. And I was curious to know, like, if you were to sort of swing open the top of your toolkit for us in terms of, what is kind of Will's practical toolkit to building up tolerance and resistance to defeat. Like, what are some of those tools that you pull out when you need them in those moments that have really worked for you?
I think getting away from my self-destruction is pivotal in kind of balancing the energy that I put into a performance or a show or whatever, and then pivoting to other interests. Like for me, it's being a surfer, outdoor enthusiast. Nature has everything we need to balance our egos, balance our emotions. I've found coming off of a tour, it's a very like alienating existence. You are, in a bus for several weeks to, several months sometimes. And every morning you wake up in a new city, you kind of go through the routine. And I found myself like very obsessed with social media during those times, because you're so locked into your pattern of growth and getting in front of new people and converting them into followers. It becomes this kind of like spiral of, for somebody who's like has obsessive, personality of wanting to just keep grinding, keep working, which I think is a kind of a cultural thing in this country in particular.
Mhm.
Um, the minute I can unplug from that and get out into the wilderness, get out into the ocean, all that stuff goes away, and
Mm.
you are just brought back into, coexisting in this place, this beautiful planet that we have. And it's, it's um, so it's like such a soul healing process, to to disconnect from um, the world that we've kind of created. Um, yeah, I mean, and I don't think it's all bad that um, you have. I mean, it's I think of those things as time on social media and stuff. I think of that as that's part of my job. Is to continue to provide what I think oftentimes is musical medicine for people. I think the work that I'm doing is important, and I believe that it has the ability to help um, reach people in places of darkness or struggle, and offer this kind of hand of connection.
Mhm.
um, but it's a balance to be able to you know remember that I need to restore the well myself, in order to continue this work. I need to be good too. And I think, yeah, so my my main advice is to get out, go for a hike with your family,
Mm.
um, or your dog or whatever, and just admire all the things around us that, we often just pass by, because we're so locked into our routines or
Mhm.
whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's very grounding, I feel like, to do that.
Yeah. I think of this sort of Indian proverb that I heard a long time ago so often, and it goes a little something like, um, when we as humans stop paying attention to the natural world, right? That's when the world will end,
Mhm,
and so it's like by getting out into nature and being connected and communing, if you will, and like you said, like noticing what's there and rebooting that connection that we have, that's a process of kind of like getting back in my mind to our roots, or to where it started, or that sort of great reminder, great equalizer of what's truly important.
absolutely. Yeah.
I also think about this other thing. Tell me if you've ever thought about this. So, at least in like Western tradition, with Valentine's Day and whatnot, we think of love as being represented by colors of like red and pink, right?
Mhm,
But when you look at the chakras, the heart chakra is green.
mhm,
And when I look out into nature and I see all the green that I'm surrounded by, I often think to myself, this is the embodiment of love. Everything that's green
mhm,
is the color of love, the color of the heart chakra, telling us everything we need and can have. We are supported.
mhm, mm. Yeah, and it's that's part of the reason I love the season so much is that, nature teaches us to witness, uh, you know, growth and death in the seasons, as the leaves brown and they decay, then they're reborn again in the spring. And it's sort of a fast motion view of life. And um like you said, I think just really um reconnecting with the process that is happening all around us, has been happening for millennia, um is very humbling and very it's just kind of, like you said, it reboots the system and makes you not think so much about how many followers you have, how unimportant those things really are.
Mhm.
Um, there's these beautiful struggles kind of going on in nature constantly. And if you sort of tap into some of that energy and see that you're not alone in your struggles, and by the way, your struggles aren't that aren't that big a deal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's important to witness that, I think, and it's always helps me kind of go back to my work and my craft, and with a new focus and appreciation for the fact that I get to do this.
Yeah, I love that. You talked about this really fascinating concept. It took my breath away a little bit. Musical medicine. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. I mean, I I don't know if you've kind of seen any of my videos and stuff, but I'm really drawn to um, a lot of different um, instruments, such as like the Aboriginal didgeridoo is one of the instruments I really love playing and performing live with. Recently, I got into this instrument called the hang drum or hand pan, and mixed that in with the didgeridoo and some percussion and stuff, and sort of um, I find I'm really drawn to music that um, it evokes this like emotion and movement in me, and I'm and sort of a lot of it is revolves around rhythm and um, connecting with the rhythm of life all around us. And I think that sort of allowing myself to be like a conduit to that music and letting it just kind of pour through me. Um, it's like a portal or it's like a dose of, medicine for people who maybe, they can't, like you were saying, like you're dyslexic, you don't hear those things in your head, but I hear them all the time. And if I can be a conduit to that, to folks who can't, and they can sit in a space with me and feel like the resonating sound of, the low end of the didgeridoo, or the kind of mystical tonality of the hand pan. Uh-oh, you still there?
I'm still here.
Sorry, I just had somebody buzzed in.
We
Anyways.
had a brief look at your photo.
Oh, okay. Well, the point is, I think it's very medicinal, to sonically heal people through these sounds, and I think I try to use that approach in my music a lot, with even like the tone of my voice. I like it to be very like um soulful, and
Mm.
I'll try to write music that really kind of has that just um that rawness to it, so that you're getting like a really unprocessed authentic sound.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that, I kind of relate it to like food, right? Organic food, or non-GMO. Isn't a lot of music we hear on the radio and stuff is what I would call canned. The industry has a formula, and you'll hear a lot of auto tune and digital kind of elements. I don't think any of that is bad necessarily. I just don't find it as healing for myself. So that's not the type of medicine I'm offering, really.
Mm-hmm.
I do use a lot of foot pedals and digital effects with my music, but it all has to have sort of this like unprocessed wholeness to it, that really resonates with people. Here, hold on one second.
All right. Uh-oh. I'm excited. Something's happening.
So like this is like a hand pan, right? So
Stop it. I have not seen this.
so it just has this like really like, I can actually like change that. Like if you were in the room with me, I can use my hand as sort of like a filter, and it, the sound waves that are emitted when I can like alter where, where they're going.
I can hear that a
And
little bit.
it's just so interesting to me to be, to like be able to actually do that live in a physical way, not to alter it with a computer, or whatever, to actually like be able to perform it live. Um, so that's what I mean by like unprocessed,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm. That was
and I just feel
beautiful.
it. Oh, and I have a bunch of these now because I like just love the sound that they, and I started with like a very inexpensive one just to try them out, and I put out a video, and it had like a viral moment, um, and a bunch of these handpan purists started commenting, how I was playing a piece of crap. And I was like,
Watch
yeah, I
watch
know.
out for those handpan purists, those
I know. I
those
was like,
handpan trolls.
that's the thing. The internet always like just amazes you with, you think you're onto something new, and then there's a whole community of people who are like, nope, you don't. And that's that same lesson in humility. And I wrote back like, hey, I'm so sorry, like I was just trying to try it out and throw it out there. Hopefully someday I can afford a nice one. And then and a bunch of people started commenting like, hey, I know somebody who builds these, you should reach out, yada yada. And since then I've had 3 separate handpan, um, uh, I don't know, builders, make me custom, drums. And so it's become like my first like sponsorship. So the internet taketh away and it giveth back as well.
I was really thinking the exact same thing. I was like, the internet giveth the truth and it
Yeah.
taketh away.
Yeah. In this case, it taketh away, and then it gave me, so I have like 4 of these things now, and they're all in different keys. And I'm just, yeah, really obsessed with, rhythm, and trying to like use these tools now as a way to give back to people who enjoy this type of music, or weave it into my own collection of songs. And yeah, it's just, I just love that, the kind of weird random instruments like this that really, have the power to kind of make people be like, oh, that is very interesting. And you know it doesn't, I mean, it's not like a like a real distorted guitar, which is kind of like, okay, like, we're rocking hard here. It's like, it's just, it moves through you like water.
Yeah.
And I feel like that has to have some sort of healing powers,
Mhm.
right? It's because like sound waves, they where does it go after it's been played? I like to think that it kind of roots us back down to the earth, or connects us back to, um you know to to the mother, to the
Mhm.
connects us back to where it all started.
Yeah, a thousand percent. Have you attended, Will, like a sound bath or a sound healing? Have you played at one of those or attended something like that?
I've I've played, I played the didgeridoo in a couple, um I played like a yoga, festival type of thing, called Wanderlust, and we did do some of that. They had like lots of classes going on and stuff, and they did do, sound healing, and I did one of the gong baths as well. And I just love all that stuff. I think it's really, um, yeah, I think it's potent medicine, and I'm open to any of those type of things. A lot of people would think that that's crazy or nuts, but, um, I just think, don't knock it till you try it. And it feels good to me, to create this type of music. So it must, be serving a higher purpose.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. So I'm going to owe you a little bit more clarity on this comment that I'm about to make, but there was a scientist, I want to say like around at the turn of the century, from like the 20th to 21st century, 1900s, 1920s, who researched, and he felt like he identified the sound frequency that was needed to cure various
Mhm.
ailments. Have you heard of this?
Yeah,
And
it's I think it's like 440 hertz or something.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, it's like depending on what it is, so it's like, I don't know, like bunions, was this,
mm,
and cancer was this. And he felt like he identified the sound wave frequency that was most healing for particular ailments. I'll have to go back and look it up and share it with you and put something in the show notes. But I'm so struck
yeah.
by what you're saying, because I've happened on some really fascinating research that is very similar.
Mm, that's so cool. I always feel that way, like when when I go into some of these old theaters or venues, it's like I can still feel the energy, within the walls of these rooms where, where music has been played for years. And
Mm.
to me, it doesn't, it doesn't just disappear. It's like it leaves with the people that were there, and they carry that energy with them, or some of that energy stays in the building. Um, but yeah, it's really, I don't know, it's kind of woo woo stuff, but I feel like it's been with me for so long, and music's given me everything. Um,
Mm.
so the least I could do is just keep at it and
I'm
give it
here.
back.
I'm here for it. I'm here for all of it.
Glad you're there.
So, Will, you talked about, one of the significant challenges that you've faced and has been truly formative for you is, I think, as you called it, being at the crossroads of self-doubt.
Mhm.
I feel like you have a song or an album called Crossroads too. Do you not? Am I making this up?
Mm, do I? I don't think I do. I can't. I mean, I've just finished my 10th album. Um, Let me look and see if I have an album called. I don't think I have an album called Crossroads. Maybe
You're
with
like, there is so much music in my head. I actually can't keep track of it. I can keep track of all the music in my head, which is nothing.
I don't think I have an album called Crossroads. Rise. Do I have a song called Crossroads? I know Eric Clapton has a song called Crossroads,
Hmm.
but it
I'm
doesn't
looking
look like I
too.
do.
All
Yeah.
right. All right. Well, so you talked about being at this crossroads of self-doubt. And as you think about being at that crossroads, I was also curious, in those moments, if there are things that serve as your North Star that keep you from getting lost or sort of immersed in that self-doubt.
I um I kind of go to that like youthful, why why did I get into music in the first place? Why do I do this? And the amount of joy that it's brought me, is something I fall back on, I think, a lot, is just um when I get to play music in the morning with my daughter. I have her usually in the mornings, as my wife works mornings, and we have music time every morning. We come into my little studio here, and she just likes to jam and or listen to music, and seeing it, how she lights up when she hears a song she likes, or whatever. It's um it's re- it reminds me of myself, what I got into it in the first for. It's like that, you just that feeling you can't found that in any other career I've tried, or job I've tried. And it kind of makes all the suffering worth it,
Mm-hmm.
um, in a way, when you, and also like when you hear an idea that you had that started as just often I'll wake up in the middle of the night with a melody, and I'll take my phone, and I've got hundreds of these voice recordings of, you know, incomprehensible like melodies or what lyrics. And when you finally get one of those all the way to the finish line and you hear that completed idea in a full recorded song or album, it's like, it's very emotional for me. Like I usually have a breakdown when I finally finish the album and it's out, like on release day. I'm just so just mentally and physically spent from the experience,
Mm-hmm.
that it causes me to, just because you were reliving like all these moments that finally like led to you finally being able to overcome the boundaries of uh the monetary boundaries and the burden of having to like create a new album, and knowing that in today's world a stream is worth 0.004 cents, so like 1/400th of a penny per stream. um so you're never gonna, very unlikely you'll see the return on your investment, unless you just stick it out, and eventually, hopefully, enough people listen to it. But it's yeah, it's really difficult to like kind of go through that process again and again and again. Every time like you finally like feel like you're in a good place, it's like time to start another album again.
Mm.
And that can be very defeating at times, if not for the joy I feel like of knowing how good it feels to complete one of those ideas and finish the cycle. I don't know if I'd be able to do it still. So I think joy is really my answer.
Mm-hmm.
um it just
Mm.
fills me with so much joy to play. And I think that's a lot of the reason why like I've never been able to be in like a cover band or play other people's music for a living, because it's not mine. I don't have a connection to it the way that I do with something I've written or created.
Mm-hmm.
Because really I would, regardless of if anybody showed up, I it's like I can't turn the faucet off once it's running. It's you have to let the ideas and the creative components come through, or else I'll just be stifled and like a miserable person, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
um I've had a bunch of jobs, or I was a boat captain for a while. I worked as a teacher for like a marine science school. um I waited tables. I've done all those things, and I remember thinking about music all the time when I was doing those
Mm.
things. Like I couldn't wait to get home, pick up a guitar, or just like express myself in through sound. So yeah, it's like I said, it's music's given me everything.
Mm.
um and I'm seeing it now going through my daughter, and and what it's done for my family as well. It's brought people together in uh so many ways. um a lot of concerts have become like family reunions. That if I'm doing a show up in Vermont where my dad's family is, it's an excuse for everyone to get together. So like I'm to blame for that, and that's a good thing.
Right. You're
um
to blame for bringing the family
right,
together.
exactly. It's like it's a great excuse for everybody to be like, let's all, and I like to think they enjoy it too. They enjoy the music. But yeah, music's always been that way, I think, in through through centuries. Like music is part of celebration. It's part of grieving. It's so important, in historically, in societies, people use music for work, for laboring, and it, like, you know, it helps you get through things that are not fun. You know, I think about like the I don't know if you've ever been to the Mystic Seaport, but you know, the sea shanties that they're singing are labor intensive song, you know, that they would kind of get in rhythm with what they were doing, whether it was scrubbing the decks or pulling the sails, the riggings. That job could be a lot more mundane without music, but it, you know, it helps people get through all these tough things. So yeah, I really think it's important work, to keep creating that type of music that really gives people, you know, hope or joy, or I mean, even pain. You know, people love sad music because
Sure.
it's so relatable.
Yeah. Yeah,
And I feel like some
absolutely.
of my best songs have been out of, you know, out of heartache, out of those times of great struggle. So yeah.
Absolutely. I've not been to the Mystic Seaport, but I have seen Mystic Pizza. Does that count?
No, it doesn't.
It
I worked at Mystic Pizza. Funny you should bring that up. I used to polish the brass in the entire restaurant.
No, you didn't. It's a real place.
Oh yeah, well, the actual set location was fake, but there is a Mystic Pizza in Mystic, and they, you know, take claim to the name and all that stuff. So there's photos of the movie scene and everything all over the place. And people asked me all the time when I worked there. I think I was 16. You know, do you ever see Julia Roberts here? Like, does any of the cast come in? I'm like, no.
You're like, they were just here yesterday. You just missed them.
I'm like, just let me polish the brass, please.
I love it. I love it.
I was probably handing out demos of my first band to people back then. You know, that's how obsessed I was, you know, with
That's
music. I was
great.
playing. That was all I wanted to do, was get out of work so I could go jam. So yeah, it's been a
More than
long.
one great thing has been spawned at the Mystic Pizza.
That's right. That's right.
When you think about, Will, the 5 practices of particularly resilient people and your experience effectively facing or addressing challenge in your life, is there one of those practices that really kind of speaks to you in terms of how you think about the journey of connecting with and working through seasons of challenge?
um, I think that possibility is probably my favorite of the 5, because there's no limitations, and I think that's why I love music so much. There's really no ceiling to what is possible. You can, you know, you can take a handpan and a didgeridoo and a kick pedal and make it sound like, you know, this tribal, anthemic, you know, mystical, spiritual sound. And that's, so I think what drives me, you know, is like, I don't do well with um what my one of my old bosses said to me, you know, some birds aren't meant to be caged. Will, I think when I when I went tried to do another career and then came back to this other job, because it was, I couldn't handle like the being stifled, you know.
What was the comment? Sunburns aren't meant to be caged?
Oh no, some birds.
Oh, some birds. I heard
Yeah.
sunburns.
Well,
Sunburns.
sunburns aren't meant to be caged either. They're meant to be allowed. But no, I left a particular job, and ended up coming back to it very shortly after, because I couldn't handle the more, like, you know, rudimentary position that I had attempted. Um, I just need kind of the freedom to be who I am, and to pursue this passion. that just has driven me for so many years. And I think so, yeah, possibility is just, it really resonates with me, just because any situation you look at, you can, um, it's possible to figure out a positive light from it, you know? Um, you could take a car accident or whatever, and it's, as long as everyone is okay and walks away uninjured, you can see it as a beautiful reminder of, how precious life is and how important it is to be present,
Mm-hmm.
um, instead of looking at it as just like a inconvenience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that's like so important with resilience is to sit with the fire, sit with the dark thoughts and you know, a lot of the anxiety and stuff that we experience, is to not beat yourself up for it,
Mm-hmm.
but to just bear witness to it, acknowledge that it exists, and see how you can come away with some sort of nugget of wisdom from that, instead of giving into those feelings. Um, if you can see them for what they are, I think you'll have a lot easier time overcoming
Mm-hmm.
um, those feelings when they come up.
Mm-hmm.
And I've failed at this hundreds of times and will continue to, but I know that at least I know that that's what's happening. Um, and I can hopefully process whatever those feelings are a little easier if I don't judge myself so harshly for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Everything you're saying is so beautiful. And I'm thinking about how we're in this moment right now where so many people are experiencing burnout and overwhelm and exhaustion. And, it's in large part where people who have had many people who have had corporate careers have now been working from home and just been in these sort of like rapid fire Zoom meetings, and everybody's starting, not everybody, but so many people are starting to have felt for a while like very chained to their computer. Um, and, I'm thinking about this quality of like what it means to be human. And I thought, freedom is our default mode, right? As a human, it's our sort of default OS. And when we start to feel like that freedom is lost, or we don't have an opportunity to express ourselves, um, then those are the moments, I think, where we um, are really susceptible to that burnout and exhaustion and anxiety. And it's the opposite of possibility, right? If possibility is about being limitless, when we start to put parameters around things and feel limited to an extent,
Mhm.
it's the sort of ultimate crusher of the human spirit.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
Couldn't agree more. But yeah, I feel for those people that are, really, yeah, really, missing their community, and they're like, the workplace has a rhythm, has a cadence, and I think um we're a society of we're a species rather that, likes to commune with each other and live amongst in groups, and I think that it's been probably particularly hard for a lot of people. I'm sort of used to being a hermit, like, I I'm, other than when I'm performing, I'm often alone with my thoughts and my music and my instruments and stuff. Um, but I think people who are used to having a routine and being in a space, a shared space with other people, and that's that's got to be really difficult right now to
mhm.
not have that. Yeah. I mean, I even felt that burnout with live streaming.
Mm,
You know, I'd every Thursday would come along and I'd just kind of be like sick of myself, you know.
mm,
If I didn't have something new to share musically or whatever, it was difficult to hit that record button, go live button, because I was like, I don't really feel like I have anything to give right now.
mm-hmm.
And those were often the best nights, you know. I would,
Hmm.
because you know, you'd get a comment or something that would kind of snap you out of that funk and into gear, and make you remember like what a privilege this is. You know, I'm sitting in the comfort of my own home in front of my phone, and there's hundreds of people joining me, um, just to, you know, just to bear witness. And you know, so even in those moments of kind of distaste, and it was never like that I didn't want to give them a performance. It was more just like my own.
Of
I
course.
was, you know, and that's, we're so prone to that, right? Just like falling into that habit of self-deprecation and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um yeah. And I think it's like I said, none of it's not rare, it's completely normal. And the more we can make peace with it and persevere, get, you know, keep going, you know, in
Mm-hmm.
spite of your own self, the stronger we become, and more resilient we become.
Yeah. I also heard that muffins help with live streaming.
Absolutely.
Just, you know,
I yes. Yeah, those, and that, and wine as well.
muffins and wine. It's a great combination if folks haven't tried it.
That's right. Yeah, I don't want to be promoting alcohol to these folks, but you know, just take the edge off a little bit sometimes, and you'll get out of your own headspace and have a muffin, you know?
Absolutely. Well, I've got a bit of a rapid fire for us
Okay.
here to wrap up at the end. You don't have to think too much about it, but
Hmm.
I've got about 5 or 6 questions where you'll just complete the sentence. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Yep.
Okay,
Hit
let's.
me.
Here we go. The title of my memoir would be.
Searching for balance.
Ooh, I like that. My theme song is.
We will rock you.
Oh, heck yes. Life is too short to.
Not have muffins and wine.
I agree. If my memoir were adapted into a film, the actor that would play me would be.
Oh, I would have to go with uh Heath Ledger.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't
Or
think.
Christian Bale. Maybe either Heath Ledger or Christian Bale.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Nice. I like that.
Have you had either of them yet?
Uh, not yet. Not yet. We put our calls in. We're still waiting for their people to get back to our people.
Sure.
You know how it
Yeah,
goes.
I do. Yeah.
Christian Bale and Heath Ledger's people, if you're listening, we're so excited to have you on the show. We can't wait.
Well, unfortunately, Heath Ledger passed away, but Christian, Christian's still around. I think he was in one of my first favorite movies, or musicals rather. I don't know if you ever seen Newsies, but
Yes.
Christian Bale was in the um, film version of that, Broadway.
Got it. Got
And
it.
yeah, I've been a fan ever since. And then Heath Ledger was just, you know, phenomenal talent, lost too soon, but
Too soon. We lost him too
you
soon.
you could tell like he had that similar like obsession with his craft, you know. And
Yes.
um, I think it kind of dragged him into the next life, because of
Yeah.
that, you know. But
Yeah.
like so many, you know, creatives who are just so brilliant.
Mhm.
Robin Williams, that would be another one, you know.
Yep.
Um, Yeah.
Mhm.
Anyway, sorry to deter you from our rapid fire.
No,
What was that? That was
absolutely.
number 4, right?
Yes. And I was trying to think with regard to Heath Ledger, like, is there a way that we could sort of splice to bring some interviews of his perspectives maybe on resilience
Mm,
together, you know? So that's
I'd
fascinating.
love to hear that. Yeah.
Love it. All right. My calling is
My calling. What do you mean by that? Can you give me an example?
no.
No.
Just
Okay.
kidding.
Okay.
Your calling, your purpose, um
Okay.
your mission. Yeah.
Um, my mission is to be a good father
Yeah.
and also like honest and humble human,
Mm,
passing on the wisdom that I've found through my experience.
that's beautiful.
Thank
And
you.
and last but not least, life turned out differently than I thought when.
Oh boy. I think um
I saved the zinger for the end.
that one kind of confuses me a little bit. Like, does it relate to like something that actually happened to me?
Yes. We'll say yes.
Okay, we'll say yes. Um, I don't know, like when um, I used to, pretend I was going to be in the X Games, and I would huck myself off these jumps in like the ski parks in Vermont when I was in college, and you know, 16 years later, I was getting back surgery, and I was thinking back on some of those falls, those epic wipeouts, wondering if perhaps my life had led me there because of that.
Right. Your back was not as resilient as you
No,
had
no, it
hoped.
turns out that I'm quite frail. Um, but as we said, it was a valuable lesson, and grateful for the perspective.
Yes. Yes, as we are. Well, Will, thank you so much for joining me for this show, for this interview. I know you mentioned before we got on that you've got a new album coming out next year.
Mhm.
And I'd love for you just to share with our listeners where they can find you and connect with your absolutely incredible music.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Taryn. Yes, I have a new album coming out in 2022. It's called After the Burnt Out Sun,
Ooh,
and it's probably my most I don't know, like introspective piece of work to date. Really, really proud of these songs. And if you want to get caught up, you can find me on all the streaming services. Just look for Will Evans, and yeah, or if you want to follow along in my journey, it's just at Will Evans Music on all the socials, or willevans.com if you're more of the old school website type. But thanks for the for the opportunity to share my story, I guess, and perspective. And it's great having a nice conversation with you.
yes, you too. Thank you so much for joining me. And it's been a pleasure to have you.
Thanks so much.